Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation, with a behind-the-scenes look at the design selection process for the new gold and silver American Eagles. Let's explore! Yes, this is some insight on the design selection process. As I posted about previously, the U.S. Mint has released 39 designs, and the Commission of Fine Arts has reviewed and selected 2 designs for the American Gold and Silver Eagles. And you may remember that this particular article here from Coin World outlines the selection process by the Commission of Fine Arts. And then the next step in the process is review by the Citizens Coinage Advisory Committee. Well, the Citizens Coinage Advisory Committee allows the general public to listen in on an open phone line that allows you to hear what they're discussing and essentially be present at the meeting through a teleconference. And that's exactly what I did. I listened to that conversation today on this very crucial and important vote on the selection process for the gold and silver Eagles. And we're going to go through and the designs here and discuss what was said in this particular case by members of the Citizens Coinage Advisory Committee. I believe there's 11 members, if I'm not mistaken, if my recollection is correct. And a lot of good points were brought up. And it reminds me of what some of you had said about some of these designs. I think there's a lot more folks that were not as diplomatic as people on the telephone, but I was kind of surprised that some of these members did have some pretty critical things to say, some of which I didn't think about, but very good points. But most of these people have an artistic background and or sculptor and that type of thing. There's a wide variety of members on the committee here. So this is what the Commission of Fine Arts put together to review these designs, and I think this is a great way to do it. It's interesting what they chose for the obverse designs. They chose a high relief version of the American Gold Eagle with the date 2021 and a relatively higher sculpted silver eagle obverse. I thought that was quite interesting indeed. I would like to see the gold and silver eagles be higher relief than they are now, even if it means making their diameter smaller. I always thought the 40 millimeter, the 40.6 millimeter size for the American Eagle was too large, but that will not be changed. That will remain the same. There's been no talk about that, but nonetheless, there it is, and these sides will remain the same. And I will make a note that only once during the conversations that I heard was an inquiry regarding the anti-counterfeiting measures, and they're saying that none of the designs selected will have any impact on those features. So it may be something that will be in the field or some sort of privy mark or some sort of micro engraving somewhere on the pieces. Whether or not they'll be on the obverse or reverse is anyone's guess. My hope is they will be on both sides. But nonetheless, that was the only question regarding that. So we're going to go through some of these designs. The way that it occurred is each member is able to make their case and comment on the designs. And that's what they did. They went through the entire roster of the members that were available for this meeting, and each one described what they preferred. And so they went through each of these designs and talked about what they liked or disliked about each one of them. And I'm going to recall from memory some of what I heard as we go through some of these conversations. This design here was preferred by, I think, one person on the committee, and because they thought it was a nice building a nest, rebuilding a family, and saw it as a continuation of the American Gold Eagle, where these two birds are the next generation who is in the who was in the nest in the previous iteration. That's kind of an interesting storyline, but I don't think that would translate well. And like I said, it was only one person that mentioned that they liked this design for that reason. However, this eagle here is what was chosen by the Commission of Fine Arts. And this design here was also a favorite for this committee, for the CCAC. In fact, it almost made it through, but it did not. It was very close. In fact, it was voted on once and it went back. It was a little bit chaotic towards the end there. But this was the design favorite chosen. And by the way, we are now narrowed down to 4 designs. And this one almost made the cut. It was very, very close. And then it was voted out. This design was barely commented on. In fact, one member made a note or made mention that it looks like, and I never thought of this, but it looks like that the eagle has broken the branch off of the main oak branch there, with the oak tree, and it looks like it was broken off. And what kind of message would that send? I had made mention in my review of this design that it looks like lightning struck this eagle. But anyways, this design was liked by, I think, another member of the community, but most thought it was too busy. And even the person who liked it agreed, and that it was too busy, so that one was out. This design was barely mentioned at all. I think somebody had said something. Yeah, I don't think there was anything at all mentioned about this design. People didn't like it, though, obviously, because it was not chosen. And this design here was commented on, and some people liked the overall theme and the composition, but made mention that this looks like more like a chicken. In other words, the anatomical representation of the eagle was not well represented on this design, and I do agree with that. And in fact, the whole view of this is kind of a strange angle for this design, although the composition is nice. I like the wing upspread here, covering some of the letters more than this side, but it does remind me of the Vistas of Liberty series. This is another one that was barely commented on, and again, this part of the wing looks almost chopped off. This design was a favorite, was highly regarded among one or several members of the committee, but then somebody pointed out the anatomical misrepresentation of this eagle. This line is too smooth and the feather orientation is chaotic. And this strange thing here with this one feather here and the other feathers going out was not very well done. And somebody else noted that you do not see eagles carrying branches in their mouth like as such, but some had regarded this as a nice and it's an innovative view. And there was one member of the committee that mentioned that we need to do something innovative and new and modern, which I was cringing at, because this is the American Gold and Silver Eagle Bullion Program, where we're using very classic designs in the obverse. So I think we need to complement the obverse. And things like this and this kind of raised rim with the lettering in cuse, which is, I think this is what this is represented around the outside, does not complement well from the other side either. So I'm glad this design ended up not being chosen, but it was very close in the voting. This design here, somebody had showed favor to this design, thought it was a bold, ferocious eagle. Thankfully, somebody said that does not represent the idea of an aggressive America. And so this design was essentially voted out. That open mouth eagle is just very strange to me. Again, it reminds me of a whale sifting for plankton. This design here, the 12s, what I call them, because there's 12 and 12A, and I like this. This was probably my favorite too. This did not initially receive that much praise, but it did end up being a shortlister, and I'll remark more about it later. But notice there's 4 different versions here. Obviously, well, there's 2, but one for the gold and one for the silver. 12A is the one that was preferred, and so this is the one that kind of ended up making on the short list, but they did not want to have the rays of the sun in the background. their argument was is there's a sun on the foreground for both the gold and silver American eagles, but if you look at the St. Gaudens, there's a sun in the background of the eagle there too. I think it would be quite complimentary to have the sun rays there, but they don't like that idea. None of them remarked or were reminded of that fact, so they decided to have that taken out. And this design was barely commented on, and although it would be relatively nice because it's somewhat of a heraldic, natural stance for the eagle, anatomically correct, too much of the wings are cut off here for it to really represent and showcase the full majesty of the eagle. This design, somebody mentioned it was spooky, which is piggybacks on what I said about it too. The ghosting, they even mentioned the ghosting, and they talked about how sculpturally they've seen that done at the U.S. Mint before and how that could be done. But other than that, there was no other mention of this design. It's number 15. This design was originally going to be several members of the committee like this design. I think it's a horrid, cheap Sears portrait. And I thought it would also not go well with modern society because the male is so dominant over the female. But in reality, someone mentioned in the call that actually the bald eagle, the female, is the much larger bird. So in a sense, this was an homage to feminism because the male is the puny-looking bird at the bottom in the bosom of the larger bird there. Thank God this design wasn't chosen. I think it's horrid. I mean, the artwork on it is very nice, but I think it's just would not represent well what America is about. This design is nice and got some honorable mentions because I think this is a better view of the eagle landing from above, almost like a protective covering than the design number 2, which is looking at the eagle straight on, with the eagle looking down, almost as if in defeat. It is not the best representation, although I would be somewhat okay with it, but I don't like the wing cut off here. But this almost looks like, obviously the bird has to look down as it's coming in for landing, but I think this view down here is a much better view of the eagle coming in for a landing. And again, this is one that's done in pairs as well, but it did not receive the enough honorable mention to get to the next stage there. But I would be okay with that design too, but didn't make it. Again, this one, people didn't see the point, just as I didn't see the point in having the leaves, and this is an olive branch in the mouth. That is not what eagles do. And what message does it send? Not much of anything. Some people remarked that they like the background here with the flag, but seeing as that's not going to be involved in the security measures, it really kind of takes away. And if you do this in proof, as it's shown here, and I've seen that method as well on the Star Spangled Banner commemorative, that proof mirror background is too high. It distracts from the design element. You'd almost would need multiple levels of frosting to really get that sense. So I'm glad they did not choose those either. And this design was not even mentioned. I was kind of hoping to see somebody make fun of it because it looks like they're either fighting or somebody had mentioned it's a mating stance, but it's kind of a strange, odd thing to see two birds in flight there doing that. It does not translate well. This is another portrait that was not done. One member of the committee said that he was against all portraits of eagles and I agree with him completely, and I even had mentioned that in my review of the video. These Art Deco type images were not even mentioned at all in the selection process there. This design was mentioned as somebody liked the look of it, but again, this wing coming out does not translate well. This other guy, one of the members of the committee, really especially liked this one because they were coming in for the family of eagles and liked that idea, the concept of family. But I just don't think it's appropriate. I didn't think it was appropriate for the gold eagle. Don't like the gold eagle design as it is now. And then we see these, which are okay, but I think you need to show the full span. Nobody mentioned this one at all. In either form, I think this outer ring is a bad idea, is not complimentary at all to the obverse. Joseph Mina was on the phone call as well, and he had mentioned about he made the note about the complementing the obverse and reverse. I'm glad he did that. More portraits, not very well done. This one had some honorable mention, this design here. And I think it's relatively nice. It's interesting, but it is kind of an homage to the classics. But I don't know that I would do it with a nest, though. This design was mentioned. Somebody actually tried to vote this one in after the shortlisted one that came through that kind of went out of sequence. And though I think it's relatively has some potential, I don't know that I would necessarily go for it. It kind of reminds me in some ways of some of the earlier classic designs in our coinage. This one was not really mentioned a whole lot, but it kind of isn't really the same apropos. This one here was mentioned, honorable mention to the former cent, the Flying Eagle cent. And it's not too bad, but it was only an honorable mention most of the times. This one here was not mentioned at all, other than the fact to say that it's too close to the Silver Eagle, which I had made mention before too. This design is the Silver Eagle pick for the Commission of Fine Arts, but was not selected or even shortlisted for the CCAC. So it was, and by the way, these arrows, there's 5 of them. They would need to put 6 in there for the Space Force if they were going to use this design. I think it's not too bad, though. Myself, I would actually make the eagle larger and have these feathers overlap the lettering, and perhaps maybe even make it. And the other thing, too, that I didn't say last time that does concern me a little bit is these feathers almost seem too big at the bottom. That seems I would make them smaller, more like what the Silver Eagle is now, the more in line with the scale of what the actual feathers look like. These feathers look way too big on the bottom here, especially if you look at them compared to the heraldic eagle, John Mercante's eagle. Someone had mentioned that they thought that Mercante's eagle work on this sculpt work was not up to par, but I digress. This design I really liked. It got enough honorable mentions, but did not end up making a short list for selection. One member mentioned that it looked too close to the post office emblem, which is true, but I do think that it's nicely done. I think it would complement the silver and even gold eagle. I think it would complement both, and I'm actually a little bit disappointed. I think the chalk sketch probably could have been done a little bit better. There's definitely room for improvement on this design, on the actual sculpt and artwork of it. Someone had mentioned that they liked the fact that it was off-center. Not me. I think it should be much bigger and more centered to show the whole full-fledged eagles. But I do like that the rock is kind of extends to the edge. But I think that the overall eagle could be a lot bigger to complement that obverse. But it doesn't matter because it was not selected. This design was, I think, had 1 honorable mention. But typically these designs did not get much traction on the phone call. This design did. Someone had mentioned that it would work well for the silver reverse. However, there's so much detail in the eagle, they were fearful that it may not translate very well to the metal. In fact, there is a hint of that because it's sort of the same style as was the case for the Platinum Eagle. Thomas D. Rogers, when he did that sculpt, it almost looks like it's too articulated, too reticulated, and the details kind of lost by the busyness of the details and the design. But and honestly, now looking at the Platinum Eagle, it doesn't seem to really complement the obverse all that well. Now this design here received the most buzz of the entire phone call. The Citizens Coinage Advisory Committee debated this. The first guy, we're going to call him Don, and the only reason why I'm calling him Don is because his name actually is Don. Imagine that. He was against this design, as am I, not because of the artistic view. It is a brilliantly illustrated eagle, but it amounts to a heads on a tails coin, and would just be too much. And I agree with him on that. But enough of the committee were so inspired by this design and liked it, they didn't care. They chose it for the gold. And so they ended up, this design ended up winning. But before it got to winning that selection, it came down to a vote. The first vote was for design number 12A, which was up here. Design 12A. This was originally chosen, 12A. And it was chosen just in general. The first vote was for 12A and for 2, which is what the Citizens of Fine Arts chose. That's design 2, which is right here. And then somebody mentioned after it that this could be for the gold and 12A could be for the silver. And so those were what ended up being voted for. And then somebody went back and said, well, can we vote for other designs? And so they decided to open it up again, and that's where this 39A came back into play again. Or 38, I'm sorry. So what ended up happening is that this design here, the last design, ended up getting chosen for the gold. And then for the silver, 12A for the silver. Let me go back up to 12A. That for the silver. So that's where the call ended. And then, in a surprise move, somebody made a motion at the very end to decide to switch them. So, and if I understand the call correctly, it looks like it was almost an even vote. Everybody had a voice call, aye or yes or no, and they said the motion passed. But I thought the majority was to not change it. So if I understand correctly, it is this design that will be for the gold. 12A for the gold now. And then for the silver, it will be this design for the silver. That's 38, design 38, the very bottom here, will be for the silver. Now I'm against that for the silver. I'd rather see the heraldic eagle for the silver, with just a larger eagle. But it's not up to me, it's not up to you. In fact, now that these designs have been submitted, there's 4 of them. Now it's up to the Secretary of the Treasury. Mnuchin will decide on which design is chosen of these 4 designs. And just to recap, this is the design chosen for the CCAC for silver. This is the design chosen for the Citizens of Fine Arts for silver, right here, 33. And then 12A, which is right here. This is the design chosen for the Citizens Coinage Advisory Committee for gold. And then for the Commission of Fine Arts, they chose design number 2, which is right here for gold. So there you have it. So that is the designs, and that's the recap of the phone call which I listened to today and the vote that was taken. Breaking news here, and now we have 4 designs that will be submitted to the Secretary of Treasury for final approval. When that will happen, I don't know. I'll let you know as soon as I find out, though. I hope you enjoyed this video. Post your comments below. We'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.